Welcome, Sojourners. This is Jonathan with Sojourners Wake, and I'm going to take you through creating a character using the character sheet. The very first thing you want to do is come up with a character concept. There are all kinds of creatures and humans that can populate the world of Bonzaro, but this form can also be used for your adventures as well. I've taken a couple of things from our favorite D20 5th edition game system, some ideas from Dungeon World, as well as the D100 Roll Under system. I've also included a couple of mechanics to make health points more interesting and to allow the game master to tweak certain things on the character sheets to kind of keep the game going without everyone always dropping to 0 hit points and rolling death saves. So we will find out how this works in your game. Hopefully it is a great thing. So first of all, you want to come up with a character name. You should come up with a cool fantasy name, but it really depends on what kind of genre you're playing. I like to play in 4 different kinds of genres. Epic fantasy is the most common. You're going to want to pick names like Terran and Aragorn or Darkstalker, names that fit really well with epic fantasy games. We also use pulp action, so the action scenes are action-packed, almost ridiculous, defying the laws of gravity a lot of times, defying the laws of physics. Rule of cool is very important in action. So it's okay to have a character with a high-octane name like Darkstalker or, the Greasy Bandit, things like that. I like the game to be a little grimdark as well, and that's where the health, inertia, and trauma points come in. Grimdark games are often fun to play as that's a popular genre right now. And of course, I add a little plucky comedy into my games, but I don't encourage your name to be a plucky comedy name unless the entire game is going to be comedy. So Bob the Third or Robert Bobbington the Third, things like that probably shouldn't be a good name. Next, you want to go with a life form. In my world of Bonzaro, 65% of the world are mostly humans. They were the ones that were freed from the giants. The giants are all now on different planets. And the elves were the ones that saved the humans, so the elves are kind of populating throughout the world. But the humans have 6 different kinds of ancestries, and this kind of helps you if you want to play a more of a Genasi character with connected to the elements, or if you want to play like a tiefling character connected to hell, or even an Aasimar connected to the heavens. You can play a regular good old-fashioned human with a constitution bonus, or you can take other bonuses as different variants on humans. In my world, I consider tieflings, Aasimar, Genasi, all human characters, just with different genetic makeup. Also including halflings. Halflings are humans, they're just really short. So that's kind of the way I rationalize everything in my world. If you want to play a non-human character, you can play an elf. There are 3 kinds of elves. There's essentially the high elves, the wood elves, and the dark elves. You can play a dwarf. In my world, all male dwarves, unless you're like 1 in 1,000th chance you're a female dwarf, and they only show up at certain times, and they're kind of like sorceresses, innate magical abilities, don't need to have any kind of encumbrance on spellcasting. So if you want to play that kind of character with unlimited magic abilities, you can play a female dwarf. Otherwise, as a male dwarf, you're a crafter, a brewer, or a builder. Did I get that right? Yeah, crafter, builder, or brewer. If you want to play a gnome, gnomes are very unique. No one's very sure where they came from, and there's a lot of rumors about them being from other worlds. That could be possible. But gnomes spend most of their life alone. They're a very rare creature indeed, but they're a lot of fun to play. Something cool about gnomes is they get 1 extra luck point based on everyone else. So kind of like how 5th edition did the halfling luck, I kind of do the gnomish luck in this game. What else can you play? If you want to play a Dragonborn, there's an entire empire of Dragonborn. It's a big part of my world are the Dragonkin, the Dragonborn. They can all breathe fire or energy out of their mouths. They're very strong. They have natural hide armor. They're very proud people, but they have no emotions. So they're kind of like Vulcans in that regard. They're all about logic and effectiveness. Breeding in clutches. and a very sophisticatedly lawful barbaric race. So they could be quite fun to play as well. In the world that I play now, the Empire has since dissolved into nations. So even though the Dragonkin are still proud people, they have pretty much agreed not to take over the world and play nice with others. That's pretty much it on the races or life forms. Next up would be a class. So as you pick your class, I want you to think of these as archetypes. There is a fighter archetype, there is a wizard, there is a magician, there is a ninja, there is a rogue, there is an assassin. There's all these different kind of archetypes, and if you go to the handbook, you can see that I've identified 8 basic archetypes that you can pick. And they're all pretty standard Dungeons and Dragons classes. So if you want to play someone sneaky with a lot of opportunities, play a rogue. You want to play someone who does high levels of damage, play a barbarian or fighter. You want to play a support class, play a cleric or some kind of wizard. The wizards are really fun because there's 8 different kinds of wizards, and then within that there's 5 different kinds of magic sources. So that can get really fun. Next up, you're going to roll your stats. So if you look at the Sojourner's Handbook that's provided, there's a little handy chart. You're either going to roll 3d6 or you're going to roll a 1d20 per skill. So for strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, you will roll 3d6 if you want to be conservative and get the average, or you can be risky and roll the d20. Obviously, if you roll the d20, you're just as likely to roll high as you are low. With the 3d6, you're pretty much going to get that bell curve right smack in the middle of an average character. Just to give you an idea of how I play the game, strength is anything involving your body, dexterity is involving your hands or your feet, constitution is involving your health or stamina, intelligence is involving your mind, and it is the method by which you cast spells. Wisdom is your sensory awareness and intuition, and it also gives your initiative bonus to help you act quicker in combat. And charisma is your willpower, and it is also the stat by which you resist most magical effects, including being possessed by a ghost. So there are no dump stats. I try to make use of every single statistic so that everything's exciting. When you are in combat, if you're using a melee weapon, you're most likely going to use strength. If you are using magic, you're going to use intelligence. If you are dodging out of the way, which you will be able to, you'll be able to use your defense roll to duck out of the way, you're going to use dexterity. But if you want to parry off using one of your weapons, risking it breaking in two, you can use strength. And we'll get more of that when we get to combat. So roll up your stats now and let me know what you got. Okay, next you're going to pick 2 skills. These are things that your character is just good at, and it's irrespective of your ability scores. You can look at the list of adventuring skills, survival skills, magic skills, occupations, and you can basically pick 2 of those. You want it to kind of make sense. I mean, it's good storytelling. If you came from a fishing town, you're probably good at fishing. Or maybe you came from a fishing town and fishing is the last thing you want to do, and you became really good at smithing. Maybe you lived out in the wild, so you're good at foraging, or maybe you grew up in a castle, so that's how you know how to write really well. Keep in mind that if you are a caster, casting spells, it has to be one of the skills. Otherwise, you don't get any bonuses. You're just rolling straight 0. You can cast magic if you are not skilled, but more likely it's going to go wrong. If you are a fighter, however, and you are using weapons, you have to have the skill in that weapon. So if you're using a longsword, you have to have the longsword skill. If you're using a dagger, you have to have dagger skill. That doesn't mean you can't use a weapon and pick it up. It just means that you probably won't get any bonus using it at all. So pick your 2 skills, and let's move on. Damage soak. So unlike 5th edition, I don't use armor class. So the way this works is if you take damage, your health indicated by the heart is going to drop down. But if you have damage soak, this is your armor soaking up the damage. So if you're wearing a leather vest, that's 1 damage soak, and I do 5 damage to you, well, then you only take 4 damage because your damage soak took up 1 point of that damage. So if you start getting up to like 5 damage soak and someone starts dealing 5 damage to you, obviously 5 points have soaked up and you only take, the damage minus 5. The way you increase your damage soak is you have armor that is quality, or like the Dragonborn, you start out with 1 damage soak already. Keep in mind that damage soak only applies to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing weapons, basically anything naturally made. It does not apply to magical damage. Okay, going next to initiative. Initiative is how quickly you start in combat. So initiative in this game is always going to be side-based. So it's either the player character side or it's the monster side. And that's how the game works. And then from left to right, the characters go. So if you're sitting to the Game Master's left, you're going to go first. But the way the initiative works is very important. In any situation, any encounter, if you are the player to trigger the conflict or the fight, like you're the first to draw a weapon or you're the first to be attacked, you are the one that rolls initiative for the group. And the way initiative is rolled is by the Game Master and that player rolling a d6. The highest number gets to go first in the round. Now, if you have an initiative bonus of 2 and you roll a 4 on a d6, well, that initiative is now 6. If I roll a 5, you've beat me at a 6 to 5 because you had a bonus. So it's very important to have a high initiative for the sake of the party. But once initiative is established, the Game Master and the players alternate turns with going left to right. So if the players are first, the players go first, left to right, ending with the Game Master's turn. If the Game Master's first, the Game Master goes first and then looks to the player on their left to go around the table. And that keeps initiative very clean. When a player plays their turn, that is a turn within the game. Once the entire rotation of turns is complete, that's a round. In regards to health, all players have 10 plus their Constitution bonus on health. So if you have -2 Constitution, you'll have 10 health minus 2 Constitution, so you have 8 health. Notice that because your Constitution will max out at 5, your health cannot go higher than 15. The reason for this is I don't want to spend the entire game knocking down health points. I'd much rather have high action, high drama. And so what I have found is by reducing the amount of health points and reducing the amount of damage done, we can go through a lot more rounds of combat and play a more dramatic, epic game. It also means that each turn and round is going to count for a lot more. When you start getting up into 100 hit points, you can go 4 turns, 4 rounds in a game and nothing actually change. It's an inflated health point system. By keeping the health points under 20, and that includes monsters as well. Most monsters are only going to have 5 to 10 hit points. Big monsters probably up there in the 40s. But this helps the game combat go a lot more quickly, epic, and dramatic. So again, your health is 10 plus your Constitution bonus, whatever that is, plus or minus. If your Constitution is 0, just straight 10. Inertia is the magic system that I use, and like mana or mana points, inertia is the points resource within each character that helps them cast magic and helps them resist magic. It's basically another health point system. And this, whereas like if you get hit with a sword or a weapon, you're probably going to take damage with the health. But if you take magic damage, your inertia is going to drop down. You could call this stamina as well. Wizards and magic users also spend points of inertia to gather up a pool of dice in order to create an effect. So your inertia equals 10 plus your intelligence bonus. Once again, maxing out at 15 with a minimum of 6. As I think intelligence -4 is the lowest you can go. So this is important because if a ghost takes 6 points of your inertia, well, that's what you subtract, even though your health is just fine. If you drop to 0 inertia, you are not dying, but you are conscious and unable to take turns. It's almost like maybe fatigued would be a better word. This is true if you cast spells and you get down to 0 inertia. You are conscious, but unable to take turns. Unable to move. Trauma is a really cool system. It's a 1 through 6 system. You do not want to have trauma points Trauma is basically like a way of adding conditions and penalties upon players for engaging dangerously. Each character should have something they're afraid of. If they encounter their fear, let's say it's a Cyclops, they see the Cyclops for the first time, they take a point of trauma. If the lights go out and all the torches are burnt out and you're cast into utter darkness, everyone gets a point of trauma, unless otherwise stated. If you witness one of your allies dying, you take a point of trauma. All these things can happen. If you get up to 6 trauma points, we roll a 50-50 chance on whether or not your character is permanently shell-shocked. If you are permanently shell-shocked, the character is retired from the game. If they are not shell-shocked, the trauma resets at 0, you level up, and you're as more awesome than ever. So this is to encourage players to live dangerously, to kind of toe that line between life and death, and hopefully come out a better character on the other side. Ways to increase your health or inertia to regain those points, or ways to decrease trauma, are the three same things. You can rest, you can spend time recovering by eating food, taking a vacation, going into a town and having downtime, or you can have a heart-to-heart conversation with another player at the table via their character. And this is my way of encouraging role play. If you have good campfire chats that is entertaining for us all, a point of trauma would be decreased. Absolutely. If you have a long drawn-out conversation confessing your backstory in a mine shaft, you lose that point of trauma because you're connecting with your other sojourners. Health can also be restored magically or through health kits like herbalism kits or bandages, or even like doing deep breathing during combat. If you take an entire turn, you can kind of restore yourself, maybe get 1 point back. Inertia is a magical source, so you might walk into a room with a magical fountain or meet a fairy, and you gain all your inertia back. It's totally cool. Certain magic users might have magic items that restore their inertia in real time. Otherwise, it's pretty standard. If you rest and recover in a safe place, all your points are reset to normal. A luck point is basically a place to store a reroll. In my games, you can only have 1 luck point at a time, with the exception of gnomes. They can have 2. And they are transferable, meaning you can hand them to another player if you want to encourage them to reroll. This comes in really handy if you're trying to avoid poorly timed natural ones or failures. You can use your luck point or give it to another player and have them reroll. Once you reroll, you have to take that roll, though. So if it's worse, you got to take the worse route. If it's better, you can take the better route. Like I said, you only get those 1 at a time. The way I like to give out luck points is if I'm the game master and I'm perfectly entertained either with a character doing something brave or adding some world building. I had a player one time invent a new food or a new flower or a new mushroom in the game, and I gave that character a luck point. If the characters have a argument, I know this sounds weird, but like most stories are kind of boring without the characters having some disagreement. If everyone agrees to walk through the door and go get the dragon's gold and leave, it's a very short story. And to be honest, most of our beloved stories involve the player characters having some kind of conflict with a resolution. So to encourage that edgy role play, for the sake of drama, if I have 2 players who argue about something, how to enter a door, how to steal from a dragon, which way to go, and they come to a resolution in a dramatic fashion, I will definitely hand both of those characters a luck point as a way of rewarding them for engaging in dramatic dialogue. The last thing would be death. When your character drops to 0 hit points due to a fatal wound, meaning your lifeblood is pouring out of you or you are at the brink of death, simply roll a d6. That is how many rounds it's going to take before you are dead, and visiting Grav in Respiro. At that point, you can't go back, unless Grav sends you back. But it's going to be difficult. Adventure Details is just a place for you to store details about your character, details about the other character's backstory, quest hooks, NPC names, just a nice little place to jot things down. If you go down to points, the point system is just my rudimentary basic way of gathering experience points. The best way to gather points is by playing a game, killing a monster, learning a new language, reading a book, rolling a natural 20 or rolling a natural 1. And this is to encourage dice rolls. The more often you roll the dice, the more likely you are to roll a natural 20 and a natural 1, respectively. It's a 10% chance every time you roll. This means you have a 10% chance every time you roll and try something dangerous and conflicting, you have a chance of getting that point. You can cash in those points when it's time to level up to add bonuses to your charisma score, learn new spells, or get adventuring features. You can also learn new skills. Let's just say your character really wants to learn how to forage for mushrooms. Well, you can spend a point and begin a new skill, foraging. And then you can start adding up +1 to +5 on that skill. And more on points later. Last, features. Features are basically a way for your character to do really cool things. If you think of the classic rogue's backstab, sneak attack, or if you think of the fighter's extra attack, or if you think of the sorcerer's wild magic, or druid's wild shape, these are all features that any character can get. There are 3 kinds of features. There's fighting features, there's spellcasting features, and then there's survival features. When you use one of your points to opt out and get a feature, you roll a D100 and receive the selection. It could be a fighting feature, a spellcasting, or survival feature. It's not evenly balanced. Most likely it's going to be a survival or a fighting feature. And this just gives you an opportunity for your character to do cool things. So if you want to be a wizard that's really good with a sword, this is going to be a place to go because you might get a great sword and sword ability with that. If you want to be a barbarian that has the power to cast certain spells or do magical features or breathe fire, yeah, this is going to be the place for you to go. If you want to be a rogue that can eat anything he wants and never get sick, this is the survival feature you're looking for. Lastly, the spellcasting sheet. So if you are a spellcaster by dedication and class, whether it's a wizard, druid, warlock, witch, whatever it is, the simple idea with inertia is that inertia is a dispersed force within the universe, and it collects within our bodies. Spellcasters have figured out how to collect that energy and then channel it through a component. Once it's in the component, they can direct that energy as they will. So a component would be something like a magic ring, or a wand, a staff, even a spell book. Basically, it has to be something that's not your body, with the exception of female dwarves who can cast magic through their body, or if you are a spiritualist, you can cast magic through your body, but that's a rare class. But most everybody, witches, warlocks, druids, mages, magicians, everyone's going to have some kind of component which is part of their inventory that can be removed from their person. This is the item that collects all their magical energy and then directs it. So once again, you gather everything within your body, you channel it. That's why inertia points are so important, because the magic is coming from within yourself. That's why keeping track of your inventory is important, because if you don't have that ring that can cast invisibility, well, now you can't cast that spell. Every magic user begins with one component that can cast 3 spells, but then over time they have to gather other components and keep track of what items are cast. So in this way, everybody can kind of cast magic as long as they have the intelligence bonus, as long as they have the casting skill. A barbarian could pick up a staff, utter the magic words, give it a shot for sure, but it's just going to be more difficult to be successful. So you keep track of your components in the top, whether it be wands, rings, or staves, and keep track of all the spells and the effects that you have. Again, if you're a book reading wizard, you might just keep everything in one book, and that's totally cool too. And you can keep all the spells and effects on that page right there. The last page is your inventory sheet. What I encourage is to write everything down as if it was actually in an inventory pouch or a backpack or a satchel or in your hands. And that way, when the dungeon master says the goblin takes off with your backpack, we know exactly what's inside the inventory, because that makes the game way more dynamic. One last thing about spells. No, I think that's it. So I think that's quite a bit enough. It's enough to get you started on creating a character. Once again, just refer to the handbook. It's pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, please email me at sojournersawake@gmail.com. And as always, may your story continue.